in my episodes, as I feel like each one matters and each victim is just as important. So I tried to find information about this woman's murder. I couldn't definitively link the case, but I only found one case that hits enough boxes for me to believe that it is the same woman. Her name was Gladys Garcia, and she was murdered in Taos in 2009. The 33-year-old woman had been dismembered and placed in a trash can. The police investigating her case believed that there was a connection between her case and the murder of Jessica Ventura, who was also murdered in 2009 near the area and hidden underneath a discarded mattress. Her murder was eventually linked to a man named David Hadel, who was proven to have killed her through DNA evidence, but I could find no information on who had been arrested in Gladys Garcia's murder. Both of these women were addicts and sex workers in the same area of New Mexico. With no other sources online, I think it's most likely that Andy was confessing to a crime that he didn't commit. Andy had multiple other charges throughout the 6 states on his record, including assaulting an officer, disorderly intoxication, grand theft, and battery. At the time of Josh's disappearance, Andy had been bragging to friends that he had, quote, put Josh in a hole, which made many believe that he was responsible for Josh's death. The two had many things in common, and it's possible that they had met up that day when Josh left for his walk. The main theory on the side of foul play in Josh's case is that he and Andy had somehow gotten into a fight at the cabin, or Andy somehow forced Josh to try and climb up the chimney from the inside. After Josh climbed inside, Andy blocked the chimney with the breakfast bar and left Josh there to die. Although it's obvious that Andy is a violent criminal and very capable of murdering someone, I don't know if I personally believe this theory. Josh's body didn't show any signs of trauma or a fight, and there was no evidence that anyone else had been at the cabin with him. If Andy was somehow involved, I would lean more towards the theory that Josh was dared or attempted to climb up the chimney with Andy and got himself stuck. But who would want to climb up inside of a chimney for fun? If they were on top of the roof and Andy pushed him inside the chimney, why did Josh not have any of his clothes on? Andy was also shorter and weighed less than Josh, so it's hard for me to believe that Josh couldn't handle a fight against him. Another theory is that Josh was alone and high on shrooms or experiencing hypothermia when he climbed inside of the chimney, thinking that he could get inside of the cabin. This would also account for why he didn't have clothes on, as many people undress while they are experiencing hypothermia. But Josh was only 2 blocks from his home, and he hiked all the time, so I don't think he would have already been experiencing hypothermia or have been unable to get home. Plus, his toxicology report came back that he had nothing in his system. This was a heavily wooded area, but he could have easily reached another neighbor's house quickly if he needed help. And even if this is what had happened, why were his clothes folded inside of the house if he was climbing down the chimney to gain access to the house? That doesn't make any sense. When I first started looking into this case, I 100% believed that this was a foul play case, especially after I heard that his clothes were folded inside and he was stuck in the chimney practically naked. However, after doing all of this research, I think I've reached my personal conclusion. I believe that Josh was alone and decided to try and get inside of this cabin. I don't know why, unless he was just curious of what was inside and believed that it was abandoned. I know when I was a teenager, abandoned houses were incredibly interesting, and many of my peers would investigate them just for the thrill and curiosity of it. I do believe that this rebar was either already missing due to the work being done on the cabin, or that it was easily removed by Josh. Once he was inside of the chimney, I believe that he became stuck in the position that he was eventually found. Through panic, I believe that he tried to remove some of his clothing to maybe make more wiggle room in hopes of freeing himself, and his bottom half of clothes fell to the bottom of the chimney. In an article by The Guardian in 2019, a man from London named Ed described his own near-death experience when he accidentally fell inside of a chimney. He was on the top of a roof, dangling his legs inside of the chimney when he accidentally fell in. Luckily, he had his cell phone on him and was able to call for help, but he described his experience and said, quote, "The chimney was quite narrow, and my back scraped along it. I had also taken off my shoes, jeans, and jacket as I tried to free myself, so I was only wearing underwear and a shirt covered in soot. Based on the coroner's findings, I think it's likely that Josh died from hypothermia or dehydration. As far as his clothes being folded inside of the house, I think it's possible that one of the workers saw the clothes laying on the floor inside of the house and honestly didn't think anything of it. From what I've read, this cabin was full of odds and ends, and I wouldn't be surprised if it had been broken into before, so anything could have been laying around in it. I think Chuck would remember these clothes if he had found them himself, but a worker wouldn't think much of it, besides folding them up and putting them to the side. I'm not sure how to explain the breakfast bar, except that it was another piece of furniture being stored inside of a house and could have been pushed in front of the chimney to get it out of the way. Of course, I could be completely wrong about this theory, but it's the best that I could come up with. I think Andy would have left evidence behind if he had somehow been involved in Josh's death. As it was reported, many people claimed that they had killed Josh after his disappearance, so Andy could have just been another one of them. Regardless of my theory that this was an incredibly strange accident, I still find Josh's case very mysterious, and it's one that I haven't been able to get out of my mind. The last update that I could find on Andy Newman is from 2019, when he was charged for assaulting 3 officers in a detention center in Texas. He is still listed as being incarcerated in that county at the time of this recording. Although I do personally believe Joshua's death was an accident, I still find it incredibly tragic and terrifying. I can't imagine dying in that way, knowing that no one was coming to rescue me. I also can't imagine the pain that his family has experienced and since his disappearance and death. I'm really interested in hearing what you think about this case, and whether you believe that Joshua's death was an accident or a case of foul play. Whichever way you believe, I'm also curious on how you think the events happened. Why do you think that his clothes were folded up inside? And how do you explain the missing rebar? You can contact me about this case or any other case we've discussed by searching for Missing Souls Podcast on Facebook or Instagram. Make sure you also listen to my other podcast, Kill More Girls, wherever you listen to your podcast. This week, we discussed the origins of Halloween and what cases we would most like to see solved. Be safe and extra vigilant around your chimney this winter. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Savannah Robbins, and I speak for the missing.